Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, and before we get into this sort of sleeper free agent the Raptors could potentially target, we just want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, everyone that showed up for the live stream we had this weekend, and yeah, just saying we really appreciate everyone leaving comments, getting descriptions. For people that don't know, we had our first ever live podcast, Ryker and I, and really enjoyed it. Obviously, we're going to have to get the technical stuff a little bit cleaner, but it's a work in progress. But definitely subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified for all of our new live streams. You can join the chat, join the conversation, and yeah, just want to give a little appreciation, Riker.
Yeah, man, we're on that path to 20, and it was actually really fun. There was a ton of comments through it, and like you said, we'll fix up that video, get the lag, sorted out a little bit. But Ben, we're talking about big free agents, and anytime you mention a player from the Pistons, heads immediately turn, because normally it's some sort of troll or some sort of meme. But the more that I look into this guy, Christian Wood, we can have a legitimate conversation around this. This guy has some promise, Ben. The last 15 games of the season averaged 22.3 points, 9.5 rebounds, a steal, a block, shooting 56% from the field and 41% from three. And on the full season, he shot almost 39%. Was only playing 20 minutes per game, Ben. Only 20 minutes per game, putting up 13 points. He can be extremely efficient. A 6'10", athletic power forward / center. This guy's legit, Ben. No meme attached.
Yeah, no, he is surprisingly, he's a guy that's been completely under the radar, and no one's really talking about him, surprisingly, which I guess makes a lot of sense because, as you mentioned, playing in Detroit really didn't come on till late last season, and there can be some arguments made that, hey, maybe it's because they're a team, they had nothing to play for, he was given the opportunity. But once they got rid of Andre Drummond, he was really just exploded for that Pistons team, and he showed some promise the prior year with the Pelicans as well. So he's a really interesting prospect. His defense sometimes leaves a bit to be desired, but certainly with a 6'10" build, athletic, you can see him being a guy that, especially in a decent system, because the teams he's played on, the Pelicans, the different teams, the Hornets, Pistons, he did play with Milwaukee for a little bit, but got essentially no minutes with them. But the inside a Nick Nurse defense, a solid NBA defense, I could really see him sort of patching that area of his game up. But Ryker, 25 years old, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm kind of baffled. No one's really talking about him, and yeah, would you expect the Raptors to go after him? Because he seems like a Masai Ujiri guy.
Well, no, there's a reason that nobody's talking about him, and it's not just because he's on the Detroit Pistons. I think that is a reason. Don't get me wrong. But I think more so there's very little promise for that team. And that's not me being overly critical, but they don't have a lot of guys. The only people that are still confirmed on the roster for next season is Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard. All of those guys do have some talent, but the rest of their team basically looks gutted. And we brought his name up before as a potential free agent and said there's no way that the Pistons are going to let this guy walk. But with that being said, there is now, he was on IG. You'll have to break this one down for me, but everybody's talking about it now on Raptors Reddit. He's on IG Live asking what team he should choose to go with next year. Where is he going to play? And I think that there is some real meat behind when a player says that, because, sometimes money really overrides somebody's decision. But then there's other times where the franchise just lacks direction to such an extent that you'd be willing to turn down maybe a couple extra $1 million, or I don't know what the threshold is that he would want to get paid, but especially if there's other teams that'll show interest in him, just to be on a more winning team with a better culture, Ben.
Yeah, and as you brought up, I guess there's also, I just want to give a shout out to the people in the IG, in our YouTube Live. There's a lot of people comment and they want Christian Wood, but allegedly it's been reported across multiple places. Obviously, you and I didn't see it, but we saw it from Reddit, and we sort of cross-validated it with places like Fadeaway World and stuff. But Christian Wood went on an Instagram Live and straight up asked people where he should go the offseason, read some comments, and ended. So for a guy that even potentially would stay with his current team, I really don't expect him to do that. And especially with all of the time that has gone on with the Pistons, there's been a lot of room for him to sort of negotiate and talk with the Detroit Pistons team and see, figure out if they are really interested in bringing him back and at what cost and sort of things. And so a lot of people expect he's gone. And that was, you and I sort of thought as you brought up, the Pistons really don't have that many players on their roster. Why on earth would they let a young talent like this leave? But if he's gone, Riker, I think he could be perfectly suited for the Raptors. And I guess the real question is, what would you be willing to pay for a guy like this? Obviously, he's bounced around the league for a while, but had that just explosion of playing at the end of last season. I guess it is still of a risk because playing in a no-pressure situation and a nothingness like Detroit, you could maybe get inflated stats. You could maybe see more opportunities, all these sorts of things. So what would you be willing to offer Christian Wood if he was on the table for the Raptors and potentially him being a Marc Gasol replacement?
Well, he's making currently, he's only making $1 million, I believe. I think the exact number is 1.6. And I said before, I'm willing to offer anybody any amount of money if it was on a 1-year deal. But obviously this guy potentially showing that he's a capable NBA big. And the term I love to use is serviceable NBA big. You know, a guy that can go out there, not necessarily as a starter, but as a backup, contribute valuable time, and maybe, hopefully, be playable in the playoffs. And I think you're absolutely right. The concern is that sometimes stats get overinflated, and I think with his sample size in his first 4 or 5 years in the NBA, he just didn't play enough games to show, like, was it an anomaly or was it not? But he played 62 games for an average of 21 minutes on Detroit this year. And like I said, shooting 56% from the field, 39% from three, 13 points in that amount of time, 6 rebounds. Like, these are impactful stats to put up as a backup center, because typically the ball, you know, the system is not going to run to make you the primary scoring option. So I don't think that, I think because one, of the team that he played for, and two, that he only had backup minutes, I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to get $10-15 million in free agency. It's possible that he would, but I think something reasonable would be maybe that 8 to 10 range, and I'd be fine to pay him that, Ben.
Oh, yeah, I'd definitely be fine to pay him the 8 to 10 range. But my question is, you know, why wouldn't a team like, I don't know, the Hornets, a team that, you know, need players that could potentially become stars, and certainly he's shown glimpses of being a starting center, certainly in this league with those types of stats and that three-point shooting ability. Why wouldn't a team, you know, that's lower tier that would be looking for a big take a risk on a 25-year-old like that? So I definitely expect him to sort of make more money in the future, right? Or this offseason, with different teams. I think we'd probably get priced out if we're only willing to offer that, 8 to 10 range. I think he could definitely, someone will throw 12 to 15, I think, at him. I think that would be a route. But Riker, you mentioned that he'd be the backup big, because obviously Serge Ibaka is the more established, certainly the better defender, and has been playoff tested, playoff proven. But do you think there's any world where the Raptors sort of look at him as maybe not the starter this season, but as Serge Ibaka sort of ages out and, Christian Wood could potentially be entering his prime? Do you see any world where they sort of market to him like, hey, we'll give you long-term stability, because he has been a guy that's bounced around, hasn't made much money throughout, not a contract that would obviously handcuff us to the point where he'd be untradeable and it would affect us getting Giannis, but maybe a 3 or 4 year deal, 10-11 million, where we say, hey, if you perform and you stay at a decent level, you could be a starting center? Or would that just be way too much of a risk for the Raptors?
That, to me, that sounds like way too much of a risk. We talk, again, say sample size, and I think he's proven enough in one season. Might get some pushback on this in the comment section, but to me, he's proven enough in one season, especially from his play at the end of the year, to show that he's capable of being a backup big. Now, to extrapolate that information and say now he's a capable starting center to play with the upper echelon, the types of players you'd be needing to defend and then score on, it to me, it doesn't, you're not able to make that jump without at least seeing him in that position. I think he only started about 12 games for the Pistons this year out of the 62 that he played. So to me, no, I wouldn't offer him the money with the intention to say this guy's definitely going to be the starting big. But what I could see happen, and Yes, I think we know that the Charlotte Hornets are willing to take a gamble because there's no potential when you're offering Bismack Biyombo the amount of money that they offered him. This guy's not going to develop into anything.
Magic, bro. The Magic gave him that contract.
Okay, so we know that there's at least 2 teams in the NBA that are crazy. There's no potential when you're looking at Bismack Biyombo. You're like, I'm just going to offer him this amount of money for 6 points per game, whatever he gave to the Raptors. So we know teams could go in with these crazy overinflated contracts. But I think could also happen is, and we broke it down in the Serge Ibaka video, that could happen with Serge. They could swoop in, say, let's give Serge $28 million a year. And now, if the Raptors are saying they're offering him a 4-year deal, we don't want to match that. We want to leave our cap space open a little bit. That's when I see them saying, all right, well, let's pay this Christian Wood guy $15 million over 4 years and get back. I mean, obviously, you're getting way less of a player, but that's when I could see you try to groom him into a starter if you don't want to, max out Serge. I don't think that'll happen, but that's a potential.
Yeah, and maybe the more I think about that, 4 years, 15 years would just be kind of crazy, but a little, more of a long-term deal, because for a guy that's bounced around the league, he might be more attracted to that and cash in on the big season he had. Maybe not necessarily bet on himself like Fred VanVleet, but cash in while the iron's hot. But I don't know, and I'm in agreement with you, certainly, because both you and I expect Marc Gasol to be gone. Those rumors have been all over the place now, but we trust the original report that he's going to end up playing in Barcelona, or at least likely not be on the Toronto Raptors. We also made a video that the Clippers are also interested in him, but if Serge Ibaka gets pried from us, if he gets maxed out by the team, and the Hornets are getting brought up a lot in this video because they're the team that has come out and said they're willing to give Serge Ibaka some big money, and I'd assume a guy like Christian Wood as well. But if Serge Ibaka gets pried from us, I definitely wouldn't mind, just to make it more attractive, maybe a short-term, high-money deal for Christian Wood, just to see what he's like on the roster, because we've made some videos. We got some pushback on bringing up guys like Mason Plumlee, Andre Drummond, different players, and bringing them in, obviously, that can't shoot threes, aren't the greatest defensively. I think Christian Wood would definitely be more valuable, fit the Raptors style more than different guys that have been brought up in the past, or Tristan Thompson or something like that. But obviously we don't know if it can be done at a sustained level, and you don't really want to give a long-term deal to one of those guys. But if we lose Serge Ibaka, I think it would be a much bigger risk not having a center going into next season other than Chris Boucher, who's more of a power forward, and OG Anunoby, who's our starting small forward, right? Having a guy maybe overpaying a little bit at his current value right now to say, hey, you're 25 years old, you sort of fit the age, fit the timeline of our Fred VanVleets, our Siakams, our OGs, all these types of guys, and say, hey, if he can keep this level of play he showed when he was given the reins in Detroit, this could work out greatly for the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, absolutely. But Ben, if he was going to be incentivized by a short-term big deal, again, I'd be fine to just give him a 1-year $20 million, or a 1-year however much money you want to pay him, because that doesn't eat into the cap space of the following year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure.
But I agree. And you know what? The other thing too, if Serge Ibaka, and if we're going to lose him, and you say you're not confident enough to pull Christian Wood up into the starting position, maybe you're looking at, I don't know, 2 guys. Like maybe you're looking at Tristan Thompson and Christian Wood or something like that, like one that's a little more experienced, a little more chiseled, but offers a lot less in terms of potential. And I don't know, there's a whole thing that could happen. We both expect Serge Ibaka will likely get re-signed by the Raptors, but Christian Wood, he looks really clean, Ben. That's what I have to say about him.
Yeah, he's definitely bit of a high risk, but certainly a high reward type of player. And he's a guy that Toronto Raptors fans seem to really want. They were blowing up our comment section about it. So had to make a video, especially when we heard about this IG live. And we're assuming this isn't fake news because it's been reported by different media outlets. But we know how that sort of stuff travels. But even still, if that live is fake, he'd still be an interesting unrestricted free agent. But how would the Pistons how would they mess that up with this guy, Ryker?
Dude, I think that they could mess it up just by being the Pistons, just by only having 3 or 4 guys committed to the team next year, having no shooting guard, or I guess Luke Kennard, I don't know if he's a shooting guard or small forward by, true position, but just having no direction with the team. Like, I think to a certain point you want to make a couple $1 million. You know, you've been in the league 5 years and you're basically always making a minimum contract. They're like, okay, we'll give you 15, we'll give you 12, whatever. I mean, that's attractive. But if another team that's a better market, that's in a better position to win, that'll give you a more increased role, comes around and offers you comparable money, I could easily see you wanting to just leave for the sake of leaving, Ben. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, I think that there's people out there that think the same way.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. I'm just kind of shocked because teams like the Pistons, you know, especially where they've been in terms of a franchise for the past decade, you just got to capitalize when you find little diamonds in the rough. And the Raptors have done that seemingly every season, whether it be Terrence Davis, Fred, Siakam, OG, all these types of guys. And to just be gifted a player like this and have him explode on your roster and then have obviously disgruntle him enough to, as you brought up, like, obviously I can see him leaving regardless, but have him disgruntled enough, and some people say he's a bit of a locker room headache or something like that, but to have him be in a place where he's willing to go out there and say, what team am I going to play for? Where am I going to leave to? I need ideas, right? Like, that's tough. That's a tough look for Detroit. Dwayne Casey hopefully can get those troops together. I don't really know what to think of that, but you guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Let us know in the comment section below if you want to see Christian Wood be a Toronto Raptor in the future. Riker, any last words?
No, I'm just laughing, man. That's a tough look for Detroit. It is. It really is. That poor franchise.
The championship franchise. The championship franchise. You walk into their gym and you see championships.
Yeah.
You don't feel that in Toronto. Obviously quoting Dwayne Casey, who the Raptors ended up winning a chip when he left.
Yeah, obviously. Oh man, they went from the bad boy Pistons to just the sad boy Pistons. It's brutal. Anyways, Ben, good podcast. Cheers.